Oh wow, that's a lot of donuts.
I'm celebrating my 100th episode of the Story Stream today.
Wow, sounds exciting.
It is. I've got these donuts, a new shirt, special guest, bubble machine. It's going to be a really special episode.
Wow, when is it?
Noon.
It's noon right now.
You're kidding. I've got to go. Take these.
What do I do with the donuts?
Just leave them there. I'm sure some crows will take care of them. Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of the Story Stream. It is a beautiful, warm Saturday afternoon, and we are here to celebrate our 100th episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope wherever you are enjoying a beautiful day running through your many landscapes. We are going to do things a little differently today. Instead of writing a story, we're going to go over some of the many stories we've written over the last 99 episodes. Before we do that, I thought I might share a little bit about the inspiration for the Story Stream. When I was a kid, I always really liked the type of books that were like collections of lots of stories, and I have here some vintage examples of that. This one's called Story Time. This one's called Story Wagon. I've checked it out. There's none in the series called Story Stream, but I thought when I started I'd be writing little stories like this that I could collect into a book, but pretty soon things got a lot more ambitious on this channel. We wrote a lot of stories. In fact, I have some statistics I could share with you. So let's do that right now. Since we started, we have streamed 305 days. The total time in all those days is 143 hours. We wrote 80 stories. Our longest episode was 2 hours and 41 minutes. Our longest multi-part episode. At some point, at first I wanted each episode to be a single story. But as the stories became more ambitious, that didn't seem realistic. After writing for 2 hours, in some cases, I couldn't go any further. So there were a couple stories that spanned 2 episodes. The longest of those was 3 hours and 36 minutes. 2 copyright violations, and hacked once, which is enough. Which brings us to today, and our collection of stories. We could pull a number at random, or I could just reach through the pile at random. If we have any viewers, you could make a request. We have one, Ford, my most loyal supporter. Ford, is there a story you'd like to see? Do you want to pick a number between 1 and 80? Actually, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through our stats and look for our longest story. I was running across town, I'm not completely prepared. I know it's a tough call, right? Let's see. I know the one I want to read you. The longest one is a tie, actually. Number 40, story number 47, which spanned over to story number 48. And that is right here. This was a story of a wolf and a moose who shared an unlikely friendship. The random words we pulled that day were sweat, moon, yodel, and twisted. And this is what we wrote. Clancy Wolf ran through the forest in a great hurry. He was late once again for howling practice. Chief isn't going to be happy, he thought. The pack was just starting its second howl when Clancy skidded into the circle. Hoping the pack leader wouldn't notice his tardiness, Clancy joined his brothers. Awoo, sang Carmine. Awoo, sang Carlos. Awoo, sang Curtis. Yodelay awoo, sang Clancy. He was panting heavily from his sprint, and his howl came out in a shaky yodel. Hello, Oliver. Thank you for joining us. When Clancy opened his eyes, he saw Chief staring at him. Do that again, said the pack leader. Clancy yodeled. You sound like a moose, said the chief. It's perfect. That yodel is no good as a wolf call, but it might just attract a moose. A moose? Gulped Clancy. Yes, you yodel, a moose comes, we eat. He licked his chops. Start practicing and get that moose call working. The chief and the other wolves ran off, leaving Clancy to practice. But as soon as the wolves were out of earshot, Clancy, I have a subscriber. How appropriate. How appropriate that it would pull up a moose just then. I thought I disabled those notifications. But thank you, Red Fox Blue Sox, for your subscription. I appreciate it. But as soon as the wolves were out of earshot, Clancy ran back through the forest and to his friend, Daisy the moose. I've got bad news, said Clancy. Clancy was late to howling practice because he and Daisy had been playing in the lake. Clancy would climb up Daisy's back and do cannonballs off her antlers. It was their favorite way to spend their afternoons. Jump, Wolf, Daisy would laugh. The two hadn't always been friends. In fact, the two had discovered this trick when they met. Clancy had tried pouncing on Daisy. Daisy had flipped him into the water, and they discovered two important things. Clancy loved to swim, and two, a paddling wolf kicks up a lot of a moose's favorite weeds. While it was unusual for the two animals to be friends, Clancy had no desire to eat the moose. He explained his dilemma to Daisy. I couldn't take you down, but Chief could, said Clancy. I don't want to be wolf chow, said Daisy. I want to live as long as Old Thunderbolt. Who's Old Thunderbolt? Asked Clancy. Old Thunderbolt is the biggest moose on the mountain, said Daisy. He only comes down to answer challenge calls, which no one ever makes because he is so terrifyingly huge. That's it, said Clancy. Teach me how to make the challenge call. When Old Thunderbolt shows up, my pack will decide to stop all this yodeling business. I'll teach you, but we have to do it in a private place. I don't want Old Thunderbolt coming after me. The two friends walked into a nearby cave. They settled into the dark and started practicing. Okay, repeat after me, said Daisy. Man, I have not looked at these stories in a while, and I have to admit, notes like that are a little difficult to read. Let's see if I can figure this out. Okay, repeat after me, said Daisy. Clancy copied as best he could. He sucked in his belly, twisted his ears, wiggled his lips, and yodeled. You're trying too hard, said the moose. You sound like a sick caribou. Clancy tried again. Better, said Daisy. Once more. The two practiced late into the evening, their bugles, yodels, and howls echoing out of the cave and into the night. When Clancy returned to the pack, he found Chief awake. How did practice go? The old wolf asked. Good, croaked Clancy. His voice was sore from all the yodeling. Chief nodded. We hunt tomorrow. Get some rest. The next day, the wolves set themselves up at the top of a hill. Clancy, you stand here and start calling, instructed Chief. We'll be over there in the tall grass. Clancy sat between the two twisted pines and waited for the signal. Chief flicked his tail. Clancy loosened his lips and began to yodel. Then it happened. A great crashing sound could be heard coming from the mountain. Trees shook and birds flew into the air, wheeling in dark flocks. The ground trembled. Something's not right, said Chief. Crash! Old Thunderbolt, the biggest bull moose on the mountain, rushed into the clearing. Who dares challenge me? He bellowed. Everybody froze. It's a huge moose. That's what a delight to rediscover that drawing. That's a big moose. You, Wolf, rumbled Thunderbolt. Have you seen a moose around here? No, said Clancy. He gulped. That was me. You? Laughed the moose. You're not much of a challenger. Still, stomping you will be good practice. Clancy gulped again. The moose pack jumped to Clancy's side. You'll have to fight us all, said Chief. Works for me, said Thunderbolt. With a mighty scoop of his antlers, he picked up all the wolves and flung them heavily. The pack landed in one of the pines. Come down from there, roared Thunderbolt. The huge moose began ramming the tree, shaking it as the dazed wolves did their best to hang on. There's Clancy. Thunderbolt took a few paces back and began pawing the ground. One more knock ought to do it, he growled. Just then, the wolves heard another set of hooves. Jump, wolves! It was Daisy, coming to the rescue. What? Ruin my fun, will you? Roared Thunderbolt. Daisy ran as fast as she could. Behind her, old Thunderbolt came charging. Clancy, she panted. Your yodel. Caribou. Clancy climbed on Chief's back. He sucked in his belly, twisted his ears, wiggled his lips, and yodeled. I like that face. Out came the caribou call. Just as Daisy came to a large meadow. Out came the caribou call, just as Daisy came to a large meadow. Clancy yodeled with all his breath, with all his might. And suddenly they heard a reply. A great herd of caribou were on the move. The nimble-footed Daisy weaved her way through the herd. Behind them, they could still hear Thunderbolt snorting. The big moose couldn't bully his way through a herd this big. You wolves haven't heard the last of me, he shouted. The wolves yodeled in reply. The sound startled the caribou, and they swept old Thunderbolt over the horizon. Moose, said Chief, you are officially one of the pack. Thank you, said Daisy, and you all make pretty fine moose. Chief wagged his tail. See you after howling practice, Clancy, he said, leaving the two friends to enjoy their afternoon. Swim? Asked Clancy. You know it, Wolf, said Daisy. The end. Man, that was a fun story to revisit, although I realize... Oh, thank you, Red Fox, Blue Sox. I realize that looking at it again, it does need a lot of editing. Red Fox, Blue Sox. I thought I might just read a few stories. Do you have a request? You can pick any number between 1 and 80. And we'll see what story it is, and hopefully it won't be as long as that one, because like Clancy, I'm going to lose my voice. All right. I have my random word picker. I was going to set up a random number picker, but I was counting on help. Oh, you know, while we're waiting, 63. Great, we'll get to that in a second. I mentioned in the introduction that I have a new shirt. I have made, for the occasion, 63. Oh, 63 is a good one. I've made for the occasion some merch. It's Joe Cabbage. It's an advertisement for Joe Cabbage's Bakery, something we see quite often on the story stream. I thought for a moment episode 63 was going to be a Joe Cabbage story, but it's not. 63 is one I wrote in the daytime. I do in the morning time. I do all my story streams at 3:30 in the afternoon, but on this particular day, I decided to do it in the morning. And the story we wrote was this one. We started with the words. Rain, lump, play, and flat. And our idea was a little mud puddle and a rhinoceros. And our story goes, it rained all night. And the next morning, there was a puddle. I want to play, the puddle thought. Who will play with me? He tried to look for a friend, but it was very flat. A herd of zebra passed by. They don't look fun, thought the puddle. A pride of lions passed by. They look serious, thought the puddle. A solitary pangolin passed by. It looks busy, thought the puddle. A kangaroo and her joey passed by. They look lost, thought the puddle. Won't anyone play with me? Cried the puddle. I will, said a baby rhinoceros. The rhinoceros jumped in the puddle. The rhinoceros rolled in the puddle. The rhinoceros buried itself in the puddle. The puddle was very happy. It's time to go, said the rhinoceros's mother. Can my friend come with us? Asked the rhino. Of course, said the mother. The sun shined brightly on the rhinoceroses. The puddle began to dry up. Thank you for playing with me, said the puddle as its mud began to crack. We're here, said the mother. Hooray, said the baby rhinoceros. Come on, puddle. The baby rhinoceros played all afternoon. And that night it rained. And the next day, there was another puddle. That's the story of the rhinoceros and the mud puddle. I really like that one. It's kind of a sweet, maybe even a bittersweet story. Episode 63, written early in the morning. Did I put on there what time it was? That was in February 11th of this year. I didn't put down the time, but I wrote here that the mud puddle is watching a sunrise. So I didn't write it before the sun rose, that's for sure. But it is possible I started around the time the sun was rising. Because we're talking about Joe Cabbage. How about a Joe Cabbage story? I really like those. We can find it on my list of episodes. Beautiful, nice, and sweet. Thank you. Thank you, Red Fox, Blue Sox. Our first Joe Cabbage story was in episode 49. Who's up for a Joe Cabbage story? 49. Oh, what's this? Someone's calling. Wow, how about that? It's the ghost. It's Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss, you're on mute. Your microphone's off. You have to turn off.
Hello, Mr. Gerald. It is I, the ghost of Dr. Seuss.
This is incredible. I can't believe it's you.
Yes,
How did you?
The ghost of Dr. Seuss. I don't see what is so hard to understand.
Well, I just had no idea that you watched my live stream.
Yes, of course I've watched your live stream. We have very good Wi-Fi where I am.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. Can I ask you, why are you calling?
I wanted to discuss with you your word choice.
My word choice?
I like to hear your stories, but I must say, all your words are too small. They should be at least minimum 3 syllables. Better yet, 5, 6, 7.
Seven syllable
Use
words?
words like Bippo no bungus or Rinker Dinker Fink. Differ doofer. These are all the words of Dr. Seuss.
Okay, well, that's good advice. While I have you on the line, Dr. Seuss, can I ask you a
Okay,
personal
ask
question?
away.
As you probably know, there's a lot of controversy around your older books right now. Do you have any thoughts as the author?
Yes,
of
the
the
people
subject?
at the Zeus Foundation are doing good work getting all those problematic books out of my collection.
Ah, so you're in favor of these changes.
I am glad they are getting rid of those books. Yes, phooey on those books. Bleh, tuh. Those are no good books. Those books are like oobleck. Scrambled egg super. More like scrambled egg pooper. And to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street is a stink of Mulberry Street.
Okay.
They should get rid of all those books. Tooey, pooey on them.
I'm so glad we cleared that up. So it's fair to say you're ready to retire those books.
I am not a fan. If it was up to me, we would get rid of all those books. In fact, there should only be one Zeus book out there. It should be The Lorax. That's my favorite book. It's a good movie, too. Danny DeVito does a good voice of the Lorax.
He does, really. Dr. Seuss, I'm so glad to see you're up on current events and that you have such a progressive mindset. Thank you
Okay,
so
well,
much.
now it is time I must go. I am playing cribbage with my friends Chuck Jones and Cleopatra.
So that sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you so much for dropping by today.
I am Dr. Seuss. These are my final words to say to you.
Okay.
Congratulations and good luck on your next 100 episodes.
Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from Dr. Seuss.
Remember, bigger words.
7 syllables or more. Got it.
This is Dr. Seuss saying goodbye.
Goodbye. Wow. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. The ghost of Dr. Seuss came by the stream. What an honor. What an absolute unexpected honor. Where were we? Episode 49. Episode 49. Yeah, there's a lot of lag in there. I think we spoke over each other a bit, but he seemed, Dr. Seuss seemed to be fully up on that. Here we are. Let me just get this organized because I just noticed it's out of order. Ready? On this day, we started with the words grass, cake, dive, and orange. And we wrote, the Food City cake competition was one day away, and Maya Orange was not feeling inspired. Maya was competitive, very competitive. Her home was full of trophies. She displayed them proudly. In fact, Maya had won almost every trophy there was to be won. She was only missing the cake. She was only missing Joe Cabbage's cake trophy. Joe's Bakery. Eat at Joe's. Hello, Maya, said Joe Cabbage. Will you be entering my competition again? Maya frowned. Joe was a friendly fellow, but Maya could not figure him out. The prize for best cake never went to the tastiest cake, or the prettiest cake, or even to the largest cake. The year Maya entered the yummiest cake she had ever baked, Joe gave the prize to Ella Greenbean and her cake shaped like a chicken. The year Maya made a cake shaped like a goose, Joe gave the prize to Boris P. for his miniature cake. I like Boris. The year Maya made a microscopic cake, complete with microscope, Joe gave the prize to Owen Tofu for his cake shaped like a thumb. Throwing medals around. So when Joe asked Maya if she was going to enter this year, she said no. I'm sorry to hear that, said Joe. Maybe I will see you at the competition. Oh, you won't see me, thought Maya. But I will see you. She had a plan. That's right, Red Fox, Blue Sox. You were there this day when we wrote this. That was actually one of the busiest days on the stream, as I recall. She had a plan. Late into the night, Maya worked on a special costume. She wanted to be ready for the big day. The competition, as always, was held in Blueberry Park. Joe Cabbage stood with his clipboard and started judging the entries. "This is my tree cake," said Chelsea Carrot, pushes button, and a cupcake chipmunk comes out of the top. Said Joe, making a note on his clipboard. Behind him, a lump of grass moved. Hello, Dominic. Thank you for joining the stream. We are going over some old favorite stories. Dominic, as soon as I read this one, if you want to make a request, you can request any number between 1 and 80, and I'll read that story if I haven't read it already. The next cake was Wilson Eggplant and Sally Squash. "This is our fountain cake," they said. It really works." A stream of water poured out of the cake's mouth. Said Joe, scribbling on his pad. "Drat," said the lump of grass. "I can't see anything." Joe moved to the final cake. The lump of grass moved behind the tables and climbed up a tree. "If I don't get a good look at that clipboard, I'll never find out what Joe likes," it said. "This is my puzzle cake," said Ollie Oatmeal. "It's mixed up at the moment, but if I press this button..." But before Ollie could push the button, there was a loud snap and an even louder splat. "I'm glad you decided to come to the competition after all, Maya," said Joe. "I think I have just the prize for you." Maya walked home with her trophy. It wasn't the one she was hoping for, but she was happy all the same. The end. That was our very first Joe Cabbage story. Joe Cabbage ended up becoming one of my favorite characters, and that was the first time we drew him. He looks a little different now. Where are we? I do like this version of Joe Cabbage. The antics in Food City really do delight me. Dominic, if you're still there and you want to hear a story, pick any number between 1 and 80. You know, I was saying, I was thankful to have the help with all the people on the stream that day to write the story. Because writing stories can be difficult. But you know what shouldn't be difficult? That's why I use BearSpace. BearSpace is your one-stop bear drawing super site. It gives you all the tools you need to become Wizzly at drawing a grizzly. Your polar bears will be the tops, and your pandas will be outstandas. With BearSpace, you will never have to worry that you will ruin another Bruin. So go to alligatorboogaloo.com/storystream/BearSpace for your free trial today. Maybe I'll have a chance to improve on that transition soon. Good old Joe Cabbage. He was way chubbier back then. I like Joe Cabbage chubbier. Let's see. Is there any other story you'd like to hear? Oh, I read the longest multi-part episode. I could read the longest single episode, 2 hours and 41 minutes. I know I'm sponsored now. Can you believe it? Oh, I want to say a word about that, actually. You know, my channel has been eligible for monetization for a long time, but I've resisted that. I don't like the idea of putting commercials in front of programming meant for kids. So I've never applied for monetization. However, YouTube has changed YouTube has changed its terms of use, and now they're putting ads in front of any video they want, whether or not I ask for revenue. Which forces me into the position of having, I think, to apply for monetization, because then at least I believe I can pick what ads would get shown in front of the StoryStream episodes. But if you start seeing ads on StoryStream, please know that I'm doing everything I can to fight that, because I don't want my channel monetized. And that's all I have to say about that. Let's see, what was I saying? Yeah, the longest single episode. That would be the story written, I think, on Christmas Day. or Christmas Eve, pardon me. It was episode 46. There was a stretch between episodes 32 and there's a stretch between episodes 32 and 48 or so where the stories got really, really long. My longest stories were in there, but also incidentally, some of my favorites. I don't know what was going on then, but I did feel inspired. Let's get episode 46 out. Where is it? Here we are. This is heavy. I don't know if I have it in me to read such a heavy file. Maybe I won't read the whole thing. Eric is here. Eric, I'm so glad you're here. Don't apologize for being late. However, you did miss an amazing thing. Dr. Seuss, the ghost of Dr. Seuss, called in with Zoom, or actually Flume, and we had a chance to speak to him. So, let's see. Who's in the mood to hear episode 46? This is a little bit of a long story, but it's a fun one because it has a whole bunch of fairy tale characters in it. I think maybe I won't read it, but I'll just show you some of it. We started with the words sponge, father, smell, and brown. We thought about making a big sponge cake and a bear, and we ended up writing the story of Baby Bear, of the three bears. And he smells a delicious pie. 2424. Now, was that that might be a reference to 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie? But then why 2424? Everything in the story is related to fairy tales. We have, like goose or geese on the curtains. There's Mother Goose riding a goose. There's the blackbirds I was talking about. The rats that the Pied Piper of Hamelin chased away. This, do you know Humpty Dumpty? Humpty and Son Organic Farm Stand. The Pie Man, and there's one more fairy tale thing here, the Evil Witch. Okay, I've decided I'm not going to read this, but as we move ahead from episode 100, I keep thinking, what will I do going forward? I haven't fully made my decision yet, but one thing I do know is I won't be writing stories like this anymore. As you can see, I have 80 such stories to take care of, and I want to, because I want to take stories like that and actually edit them and put them into a form where we can read them easily. So I won't be doing any more of those. I would like to keep writing Food City stories, but going forward, I think what I'll do is a lot more things like drawing tutorials and things like that. It can be really hard figuring out what you want to do with your live stream. But you know what shouldn't be hard? Drawing chairs. That's why I use BearSpace. BearSpace is your one-stop chair drawing super site. Stumped by stools, baffled by benches, chuffed by Chesterfields? Take a load off your mind and visit BearSpace. Simply go to alligatorboogaloo.com/storystream/chairspace for your free trial today. BearSpace. It's a great service. Check it out. You might find that those URLs actually work. What is there left to talk about? I did make a plan for today. I don't know if you can see it, but I've crossed out 4 things because there's 4 things I'm not actually ready to share. We could read one more story. Eric, would you like to pick a number between 1 and 80? pick a number between 1 and 80, and we will do that story. I will also use the bubble machine I bought for this occasion. Shasta doesn't like those bubbles. That one went right up my nose. That is a good bubble machine, and it hasn't left too much residue on my desk, so I think I can get away with doing it one more time for our 100th episode. It's quite a feat. Many times I've tried to do these 100 things challenges, and I've never pulled it off. This is the first one where I made it above like 11 or anything like that. "44 from Eric. Episode 44 will be the story of Lloyd Jenkins, the most boring teacher ever. This was this was written right before New Year's, I think. Is that right? No, this is the one that was written. Baby Bear was written on New Year's Eve. This one was the one written on Christmas Eve, and I had the help from my good friend Daryl Porcello. That's 41, not 44. Daryl stuck with me through the entirety of that episode, and if it wasn't for him, this story would not have been completed because 100 bubbles for 100 episodes, that's right. If it wasn't for Daryl, this story would not have been finished. And here we go. Oh no, what's the oh no for, Oliver? Oh, Ford, you're thinking of Sam Suds, the prospector. That was episode 2, I believe. No, it was early though. Sam Suds was episode 3. It actually might be fun to look back at one of the earliest ones. Tell you what, let's read 44. Eric will read 44, and then we're going to go back and read episode 3. And then maybe we'll call it a day. Floor sweater, become and dull. Lloyd Jenkins opened a gift from his students. Inside was a gray turtleneck sweater. It was neither lumpy or formless, fuzzy or itchy. It was boring. "It's perfect," said Lloyd. Lloyd Jenkins liked plain things. His classroom was bare, the walls were white. He kept his most interesting decorations behind a glass case. The kids liked Mr. Jenkins, but they thought the class was boring. They had gotten him the sweater as an end-of-year present. "Those kids know me so well," said Lloyd as he pulled the sweater over his head. A perfect fit. Lloyd decided to buy the kids a real treat for the last day of school. "I'll go to the toy store and get Monopo Uno," said Lloyd. Monopo Uno, worst game of the year. Boring. 0 out of 5 stars. Puts you to sleep. Lloyd decided to walk to the toy store. "Oh no," he said. "Here comes Lindsay and her trained dogs. Those mutts are out of control." He wanted to cross a street, but there was a giant puddle next to the curb. Lloyd couldn't escape. He braced himself for the onslaught of slobbery tongues and muddy paws. But as soon as the dogs got an arm's length from Lloyd, they pulled out magazines and started reading. "Where do they get those?" said Lindsay. Weird trick, thought Lloyd as he carried on his way. Lloyd took a shortcut through Delta Park. "The birds sure are quiet today," he said. Lloyd walked past the Delta Park bandstand where the Buffalo Boys performed afternoon concerts. Instead of Dixieland, Lloyd heard the little ding-dings of triangles. "Must be trying a new sound," said Lloyd. Lloyd continued past the Delta Park Painting Club. The artists were all painting the same image. Odd choice of colors, thought Lloyd. Lloyd walked by the children's playground. The normally curly slide was straight, the climbing structure was covered in pillows, and the rock wall had an escalator on it. They sure take safety seriously around here, but I would have sworn that slide used to be curly. Lloyd began to worry that something very strange was going on. I must be seeing things. I need to get some lunch. He ran to his favorite hot dog stand. "Give me a hot dog, Joe," said Lloyd. Anything for my best customer, said Joe. He stuck a fork into a sausage and placed it on a bun. Here you go, Lloyd, he said as he handed it over. The sausage became a salad right before Lloyd's eyes. Would you look at that, said Joe. Lloyd did not want to look at it. The sooner I get to the toy store, the better, said Lloyd. He ran the rest of the way, but as soon as he approached the toy store... This is too much, said Lloyd. It turned from a toy store to a sock store. Leroy Lama says meh. Lloyd sat on the curb. He was staring at the ground when he noticed a bit of lint detach from his sweater and float away. Everything started changing once I put this dratted, boring sweater on. That's it, he said with a jump. The sweater, it's too boring. He ran into the sock store. Give me your most colorful socks, said Lloyd. I have purple with green spots and orange with red stripes, said the shopkeeper. I'll take them both, said Lloyd. He slapped them onto his sleeves and ran out the door. Joe, said Lloyd, can I have one of your aprons? It's covered in mustard, said Joe. Perfect. $5, said Joe. Ahoy, musicians, said Lloyd. Do you have any spare noisemakers? Indeed we do, said Kermit, the band leader. We have these triangles that appeared out of nowhere. I'll take them all, said Lloyd. I have one last stop to make, said Lloyd. He ran back towards his house. Lindsay, said Lloyd, I'm so sorry I ever said... Lindsay was not hard to find. Her pups hadn't moved an inch. Lindsay, said Lloyd, I'm so sorry I ever said anything mean about your dogs. They are wonderful. The dogs looked up from their papers. Would you do me the honor of having your dogs perform at my class party? The next day, Mr. Jenkins' class had the rowdiest, fluffiest, barkiest end-of-year party there ever was. I like these guys. The end. Yes, that was the idea, that everywhere Lloyd passed, his sweater would just turn things dull. It took a lot of editing to get that story where I wanted it. But we have something of a fun story there. What did we say? Set episode 3 next. Well, writing those stories can be hard. But you know what shouldn't be hard? Drawing eyes. That's why I use BearSpace. BearSpace is your one-stop eyeball drawing super site. It gives you all the tips you need to render retinas, complete corneas, and perfect perfect pupils. So rub that sleep out of your eyes and go to alligatorboogaloo.com/storystream/StairSpace for your free trial today. BearSpace, it's a great resource if you want to learn how to draw eyes. All right, episode 3. Back when I had colored folders, I ran out of those pretty quickly. Episode 3 started here. I didn't write down the words we had, but I can tell you. Episode 3 uses the words pickaxe, worm, snort, and showy. And our story goes, high in the Smoky Mountains lived a grizzly old prospector. His name was Sam Suds, the grouchiest prospector in all the land. Why was he so grouchy? It could be because his claim was the hardest, driest, dustiest claim there ever was. In his life, old Sam Suds had worn clear through no less than 18 pickaxes, wearing them down to nothing more than nubs. And all he had to show for it? Gravel and blisters. And pick nubs, of course. Then, on his birthday, Sam Suds decided to start a new mine. And as luck would have it, his very first strike turned up a gold nugget. Yahoo! Cried Sam. I've finally done it. I've struck gold. He raised his pick to dig out the vein when he heard a voice. Not so fast. It was Miss Worm, who happened to have a school right where Sam was fixing to dig. You'll have to find somewhere else to dig. Grizzled as he was, Sam had a soft heart, and the thought of destroying a school was more than he could bear. He sat on a nearby rock, put his face in his dusty paws, and cried. Miss Worm's students all came out to see what was the matter. When they learned it was Sam Suds's birthday, they huddled together. Any solutions? Asked Miss Worm. Field trip, shouted her students. Stay right there, Mr. Suds, said the students. We'll be right back. They left Sam with a few comic books and disappeared into their hole. Sam fell asleep reading the comic books and was just starting to dream about finding the world's largest gold nugget when he felt something tugging at his toe. He snorted himself awake. It was Miss Worm and her students, and they were each carrying a gold nugget. Happy birthday, Mr. Suds, shouted the class. Thank you for not destroying our school. The gold nuggets were showy, but the comics and cheer from the kids were the best presents Sam could have asked for. The end. Now that's how you tell a story in less than 2 hours. It wasn't long after episode 3, however, that the stories started getting a lot bigger. But now that I'm reading that, I like this size story. And in fact, when I go forward making the story stream stories, I want them to be a bit more like this. So thank you for the reminder, Ford. Episode 3 was a good one. And I think that might be it for our 100th episode celebration. Unless, can we think, am I missing anything? I was going to end with a reveal, a Patreon reveal. Going forward, in order to upgrade my systems, because this computer is full. That might have been the first one you watched, Ford. Yeah, I think so. The first 2 actually were very much test streams. There were stories to go with them, but I think it was episode 2 had no audio at all, and episode 1 just didn't sound, had audio but didn't sound great. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today on the 100th episode of The Story Stream. Thank you, Ford. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Eric, for being here. As not just today, but for all the many episodes you have joined me on which you have joined me. I will sign off for now. I will be back on Monday for regularly scheduled story streams, and going forward, we will do things like the BearSpace, ChairSpace, and StairSpace. We can do a pair with HairSpace, or maybe a Ric Flair space. Aloysius O'Hare space. But until then, have a wonderful weekend and take care. See you soon. I wasn't ready. I'll be back on Monday. See you then.